Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 315, your holiday Bill of Rights. Welcome back to this month, one that's been all about self-care and boundaries and truth. In that vein, I know you're busy and so am I, so let's do a quick reminder today, or maybe new information for some of you, about your rights. And this isn't about you being selfish or unreasonable. And yes, some people out there are unhealthy enough that they're going to try to manipulate you into believing that, but we're talking about simply your rights as a person, the ones we all have. Well, we know that the holidays come with a lot of invisible pressure. Pressure to be cheerful, maybe pressure to show up, pressure to spend, explain, accommodate, forgive, and maybe even perform. And for a lot of people, this season quietly reactivates those old roles we've been talking about, like the peacekeeper, the overgiver, the one who doesn't rock the boat, the one who organizes everything because the family can't get their ish together. So today I want to offer you something simple but powerful and something I do in one way, shape, or form this time every year, and that's your holiday Bill of Rights. They're not rules, they're not demands, they're just little reminders of what you are allowed to honor without any earned guilt. And before we get into them, I want to remind you that if you need some help around this stuff, I have some coaching openings coming up in January. So check out the show notes. The link is right there for a power hour. If you have any questions around what coaching might feel like for you, is it right for you, please reach out. I answer every message. So what is a Bill of Rights really? A Bill of Rights doesn't mean other people have to like your choices. Now, that would be lovely, but that is not what's going on here. It means you stop abandoning yourself to keep things smooth. You stop. Because as you know, boundaries are not about controlling others. They're really more about clarifying what you can and cannot reasonably give within the context of what you have going on. So boundary work is a lot about embracing the context, like we talk about all the time, and embracing the reality, what's going on for you right now. So as you listen, try to notice which ones make you exhale and which ones stir discomfort. That discomfort is just information. It's not a problem. And if you've been doing this work for a while, you know that just means, oh, well, that's an area I guess I'm getting ready to work on. Discomfort is not denial in my book. And if we notice that we're uncomfortable, it means we're getting ready to work on it. So it's all good. All right, the first one, you have the right to rest, even if others expect more from you. Even if you're usually the one who handles things, you can change this from before. And remember, that guilt that might hit is totally unearned. Just because this doesn't mean that. Just because you did everything before, just because that's what they expect from you, doesn't mean you want to do that anymore. Doesn't mean you have to do that anymore. The next right you have is you have the right to say no without explaining. No is a complete sentence. Guilt is not proof that you're doing something wrong, especially if it's unearned guilt coming up. If you usually overexplain and try to give lots of evidence why it's okay for you to say no, you know that's a fear-based response and it's not your fault. And you don't have to do that anymore. You can work on getting better at not explaining And that's a process. You'll just make it shorter and shorter until you get to the point where it's just no. You have the right to change your mind. Like what worked last year may not work for you this holiday season for lots of very valid reasons. And growth often requires us to renegotiate. We renegotiate what we used to do. Our needs might have changed. We might actually just now be recognizing our needs. It's okay to change your mind. The next one, you have a right to protect your energy. And that includes limiting time, those conversations, or maybe just environments that leave you depleted. They don't feed you. And ones that you choose to show up for, you don't have to stay very long. You can make a gracious appearance, show your face, talk for a little bit, then duck out when you need to go. You have the right to feel mixed emotions. There's one that a lot of people struggle with. And like grief and gratitude can coexist, and they often do. Life is not that simple, nor are our emotions, especially as we heal and feel more of them. So love and distance can coexist as well, like accepting the reality that we just can't have everyone we love close enough to hurt us anymore. Doesn't mean we don't love them. Just means we set boundaries around our exposure to maybe their poor behavior. And so it would be normal to feel sad and disappointed and maybe relieved that you decided not to go this year. Another one, you have the right to spend within your means. And especially this year, this is so apparent for so many people. And financial self-betrayal is still self-betrayal, even when it's wrapped in generosity. Sit with that one for a moment. Just because you want to be generous, there's nothing wrong with that per se, doesn't mean you can. And you are responsible for your boundaries around your finances and not betraying yourself. Because it's not just the financial piece, it's you going against what is best for you in order to be overly generous with others. And we really got to take a look at that. Like, what are we doing? Why do we feel compelled to overspend? Why do we feel like maybe one gift is not enough, or the gift that we bought may not be enough? That can often be a reflection of how we feel about ourselves and or the relationship, and afraid of risking just telling people like, hey, it's tight this year. Doesn't mean I love you any less. Here's a really tough one that I sit with clients probably every year around, and that is you have the right to skip traditions that no longer fit for you. And this is complicated and controversial and all the things, but tradition is not an obligation contract. It's really historically meant to serve connection, not suffocation, not rigidity, not just because the family is so uncomfortable with doing anything different. Now, don't get me wrong, traditions can give us comfort and connection, like I just said, and they can be really wonderful. But healthy families allow for individuality. They allow for people to do something different this year and not be the bad guy. They allow for change. They allow for adaptation. It's a negotiation, in other words, how to keep some cool traditions the family may have always had with acknowledgement that people change and grow. Their circumstances change. They start having their own families and their own needs. More importantly, another right is that you have the right to take space from unsafe dynamics, even just emotionally unsafe dynamics. So unfortunately, distance is sometimes the healthiest form of respect for everyone involved. And you have the right to take some space from things that aren't healthy, from toxic situations. What we need to understand is not every situation can be made healthy through effort or explanation. Sometimes distance is the boundary we end up with, and that's unfortunate and sad. In my experience over many years of working with people around this, no one wants to have to not want to go home for the holidays, if that makes sense. There are often very good but sad reasons why people just can't show up for that anymore. They can't show up for the family gathering where people are unpredictable in terms of their mood, or maybe how much they drink, or how they're going to act, or how they're going to shut down or shame or manipulate. No one should have to sit with that. And finally, you have the right to prioritize your own well-being. At the core, like your nervous system, because your nervous system doesn't care about appearances, it cares about safety. And just knowing that you are even just practicing thinking about setting limits this year, or all the way down to, you're setting actual boundaries and following through, just knowing that you're setting limits for yourself can help you feel safer and less anxious and less angry and resentful and avoidant and all the things. Because you're creating safety, because you're saying, this is where I end and you begin. You're saying that your emotional safety matters, that your time and energy and feelings matter, that what you need this year matters. That's what we're telling ourselves and our nervous system when we close that proverbial door on something that isn't good for us right now. Even if it's not a bad thing in and of itself, maybe it's a fun holiday party, but you're exhausted and you don't want to go. And it actually can end up making us more loving. Like, how about that, huh? Like, can we even digress into that concept that, if we all have these rights that we're talking about today, well, others deserve, I think, to not have to deal with us when we don't practice our rights. So when you get into the fear and the fear of guilt and the fear of the shame and all the things, I want you to think about that. Well, wait a minute. What happens when I don't take care of myself? What has happened when I haven't? When I haven't said no appropriately, and then I just show up 2 hours late, or I end up canceling at the last minute, or I show up but I'm not okay. I'm maybe a little withdrawn, maybe a little irritable. Like, it's going to leak out. And so if we practice these rights that we all have, relationships can be so much healthier. We can be healthier. And even if you're the first one in the family doing this, it's got to start with one of you. And they're going to be uncomfortable with you doing it at first. And hopefully you can get a good coach, good group, good counselor with you to help you work on this. So why does this feel so hard? Well, if even a few of these rights feel uncomfortable, or maybe all of them, it's usually because somewhere along the way, you learned a few things. You learned that being good meant being accommodating. And so if you're not accommodating, then you're not a good daughter, you're not a good son or sibling or partner, parent. And so we want to continue to work on that detachment. But if we struggle with boundaries and detachment, we're going to struggle with this, where we combine things that aren't true. Meaning, for example, you being a good person is not about you being accommodating. Now, we can accommodate in certain situations at certain moments because we choose to, because we feel it's the right thing to do, but that's values-based. That's not fear-based. So I want you to think about, what are the outcomes are you afraid of? Is it the fear of conflict? Is it the fear of conflict along with not wanting to feel the guilt or the anxiety? And of course you don't. And that is why I tell clients all the time, I don't encourage you do some of these risky things until you have some healthy support around you, because you need kind people to grab onto to be there to support you and remind you that there are very good reasons why maybe you can't do the holiday things this year, why you need to take care of yourself, why you're saying no to certain things, why you want to do things differently, and why you're not a terrible person and why it's okay. And that yes, your family or your friends or your partner may be frustrated and disappointed. They're allowed to have their feelings, but so are you. And just because they have their feelings doesn't mean you don't have rights. For many people, the holidays absolutely activate old family roles that they don't want to fall back into, but they do. All those fabulous unspoken expectations, typically in families that can't talk openly and lovingly about, okay, this is what we've always done, but what do we want to do this year? What works for everyone? Where are people? It really dredges up our fear of disappointment or conflict. And also a whole nother rabbit trail I won't go down, but we can have these idealistic notions of, what the holiday should be. So that can really fuel trying to do too much, focus on doing and being what everyone else needs. But just notice what's going on in your body, because your body's going to react way before your logic will catch up. And that's not weakness, that's conditioning, and it can be unlearned. It takes time. So I want to leave you with a few questions that maybe you can sit with and be kind, but be honest when you answer these. The first one, which of these rights do I quietly violate every year? Which of these rights do I quietly violate every year? The next one, where do I confuse guilt with responsibility? Unearned guilt usually with responsibility. And finally, what would honoring myself really look like? Even if I just did a little bit more of that this season. What would honoring myself really look like, even if I just did one notch more this season? Okay. So you don't need a total holiday overhaul. You just need a few moments of self-reflection and self-loyalty. Just a little bit goes such a long way. Clients share that with me all the time. The little moment that they stood up for themselves, that they took time, that they did something different, that they said no in a loving way and said yes to what they really wanted and needed. It is amazing how little moments can add up. So know that you don't owe the holidays your nervous system, and you don't owe anyone your burnout. You're allowed to show up as a human, not a role, not a fixer, not a peacekeeper, not a parent of other adults either. So this season, may you practice honoring your holiday Bill of Rights, one small, brave little choice at a time. So today we talked about how the holidays often come with those unspoken expectations to overgive and overexplain and override our own needs. So we talked about our holiday Bill of Rights. Just a little compassionate reminder of what we're allowed to honor during a season that can so easily pull us back into old roles and patterns. So rather than just focusing on doing more self-care, this episode really centered on some self-loyalty, maybe some emotional honesty, and some boundaries that can protect our nervous system, our energy, and our well-being. So if the holidays tend to stir guilt, grief, or pressure to perform, keep coming back to this episode of the Bill of Rights and remind yourself. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I know you're busy, and I just love how you've taken time to do that today. So you took time for yourself. And make sure you check the show notes. There are courses in there. There's ways you can contact me to work with me if you just need a little bit of support. And just be proud of what you're doing so far. Give yourself a hug. All right, so pay it forward. Keep focusing on you. And I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.